Hello, ladies, and welcome to today's Facebook Live. I'm broadcasting to you live from my apartment in Umbria, Italy, so it's very exciting to be able to bring this work to you from this place in the world and to share these live transmissions with you, ladies. So here is what we are going to be talking about today. It's one of those subjects, oh my gosh, it's one of those things that it is so insidious. It is one of those things that I see without exception, every single woman that I have ever worked with has, to some degree, some of this going on. And not to say that I have not, worked with these energies within myself as well, especially when I was single for so long. And I kept hitting up against this block within myself that actually made it impossible for me to move forward until I actually knew what to do about this block. So what is this? What are we talking about here? I'm talking about the inner saboteur, okay? So what is the inner saboteur, and how does this actually show up in your life? What does this look like? So, very simply, this is the part of us that shows up, the part of our subconscious that shows up in resistance to us actually creating what it is that we most desire to create in our lives. So for example, this is kind of the most classic example of where the inner saboteur shows up. Let's say it's, New Year's Day, and you are so excited about the year ahead, right? And you say, oh my gosh, this is going to be the year where I finally gain, or I lose that 30 pounds, probably not gain 30 pounds, lose that 30 pounds that I've always wanted to lose, right? Or this is the year that I'm finally going to meet the love of my life, right? You make these declarations to yourself. You make these commitments, and that's easy to do to a certain extent. What gets really difficult, and in some ways impossible to navigate, is when you hit up against these old patterns within yourself that actually prevent you from moving forward. So you get all excited, right? On January 1st, you're like, oh my God, I'm gonna do this thing, finally, this is gonna be the year. I'm so on track, right? You start eating healthy, let's say you start going to the gym, you have like this positive mental attitude about it, or you start, let's say you create an online dating profile and you start like getting on there and you start like texting with some guys or whatever, and then it's like you hit a wall, right? That wall is the inner saboteur. It is the part of you that is preventing you from moving forward and actually finishing or going all the way through the portal from where you are to where you truly want to be. So how do we actually deal with this part of us, right? How do we work through this? How do we actually integrate, so we'll talk about that in just a moment, but how do we actually work with this part of ourselves so it's no longer getting in the way, it's no longer stopping us, it's no longer preventing us from creating what it is that we most desire in our lives? Another really good example of the inner saboteur is like, this is where I see it show up with so many women who are, oh my God, they are in such an ecstatic state. They are doing the work. They are, in the zone. They're going on lots of dates. They're meeting lots of men. They feel like in themselves. They're like, oh my God, I can feel like I'm about to have a breakthrough, Claudia. I can feel like things are shifting. I can feel like things are moving in the right direction. And it's like they get so excited and so filled up with this sense of anticipation that things are going to break through. And let's say they even meet a really great guy, right? They meet a really great guy and they think, oh my God, this must be the one, right? He has all of the things that I've been looking for. He has all of those qualities that I have been desiring in a life partner, in my king. Oh my gosh, this is so exciting. And it's like, at that moment, it's like when you're almost about to get what you want, boom, right? That's when it all collapses. Then it's when it's all blows up, and it doesn't allow you, this inner saboteur energy does not allow you to go through, all the way through, and create and land what it is that you want. So this saboteur energy shows up usually in two areas. It's when we start to, right, it's easy, let's just say it's easy, anybody can vision something, anybody can dream something up, anybody can sit around and visualize and think about what they want and say, oh my God, it's gonna be so great when I have my kid, right? You can get yourself into this super excited state. But when this all falls apart, when the inner saboteur most likely shows up, it's when you start to take action towards what you want, right? So when you start going out on dates and you actually put yourself out there in a way that potentially, that there's a risk of rejection, right? There's a risk of guys not calling you back. There's a risk of somebody ghosting on you. There's a risk of not being seen. There's a risk of being like having a bad date or whatever, a bad experience. So that inner saboteur shows up when you start to take action towards what you want most often. Or this inner saboteur shows up when you were about to get what you want. It's like almost there. You have been, you've been trying to land this, you've been trying to land this, you've been trying to land this, and it's almost there. You can feel it. You're about to have the breakthrough. You're about to have the shift, and then no, the inner saboteur comes in, cuts the whole thing off, shuts the whole thing down, and says, no, not today, my friend. You cannot have what you want. So why is this so terrible to experience? And trust me, I understand. Like, if this is you right now, I understand exactly what you are going through. This is not an easy energy to work through. This is not an easy block to work around. It is a powerful, strong, deeply embedded aspect of our subconscious, deep subconscious mind, of our primal brain. And it has habituated. It has been habituated over the course of our lifetimes to keep us from soaring, to keep us from having what we want, to keep us from fully landing into our dreams, okay? So if this is you, if this is something that you have been experiencing in your life, I want to say that I really feel for you. I have tremendous compassion for you, because this is something that is difficult, and in some ways, if not impossible, if you actually don't know how to work with this, to move around, to move through, right? So why do we do this? What is this mechanism behind the inner saboteur? Why does it do this? Why does it come in? And right about when we're either about to start to take action for our desires, or we are about to ultimately create what we want in our lives, we're about to get what we want in our lives, and that inner saboteur comes in and says, no, this isn't, like, you're not doing this. What is the mechanism behind this? Why does this happen? So in my experience, the inner saboteur is not the enemy. And this is where most people go wrong, because they try and make this part of themselves the enemy, and they try and shame this part of themselves. They try and clear themselves of this part of themselves. They try and just pretend it's not there, whatever, just to push through. Most people trying to either they push through or they just collapse altogether. It's to recognize that the inner saboteur actually has a good intention. Okay, and this is really important to understand. It's really important to really take this in, because the inner saboteur, it's not bad per se, it's just a conditioned response to us actually leaving our comfort zone and getting outside of sort of our habitual reality, our status quo. And the subconscious mind, the deep subconscious mind, our primal brain, it's that part of us that is terrified of change, right? It's the part of us who is invested in things staying the same, because if they were to change, then it would put us in a fundamentally vulnerable or potentially dangerous position, right? So this part of us, this mechanism, this aspect of our subconscious, this inner saboteur aspect of us, may have served us at one point in our lives, right? So let's just give an example from your childhood. Let's say that you were somebody who was out on, like you were going to, let's say you were like trying out for like the cheerleader like squad or whatever. I was never a cheerleader. This is kind of a silly example, but I'm just gonna like run with me for a second. Roll with me for a second. So let's say you were trying out for the cheerleading squad when you were in high school, and let's say that like your mother didn't want you to run the risk of rejection and getting rejected from this squad. And so she told you, you are never going to get this. You're never going to like be a part of this. This is not for you, right? And so ultimately she, like, because she knew that you weren't going to get it. And so she was trying to protect you in that case from getting hurt, from the pain of rejection, right? So this inner saboteur shows up in this exact same way. This inner saboteur is saying, I am trying to protect you from getting hurt. I am trying to protect you from opening your heart, because the pain of opening your heart, or the risk of opening your heart, because in the past you've had your heart broken so many times, it's just too big. Therefore, I am going to block you from taking action, from moving forward, from really allowing this desire to manifest fully in your life, because I'm trying to protect you from the pain of rejection, because it's just too great of a risk, right? It's just too much pain for us to go through again. Or I am trying to protect you from the pain of, this is a big one for me when I was growing up. My parents were very like practical in a lot of ways. And they just had this idea that I was going to be an academic. And I was like, for so many years, I was convinced that I was going to be a professor, that I was going to be an academic. And so when I started taking action towards my dreams of becoming a transformational leader and a coach and healer, I got a lot of pushback from my mother, especially. She was like, what do you think you're doing? She didn't even understand what I was trying to do. Like, you're supposed to be this. This is what you have always meant to be. And so this was her frame of reference of what a safe life would look like. And me doing anything outside of that norm would be dangerous. I wouldn't get where I wanted to go, right? So it's ultimately comes from a very good place, at least a well-meaning place, right? She was trying to protect me, just as your subconscious, your primal brain, your inner saboteur is actually trying to prevent you. It's trying to protect you from getting hurt, from falling on your face, from getting your heart broken, from getting rejected, from getting ghosted, from whatever it is, right? So it's really, really important to understand that the saboteur has ultimately good intentions. However, ultimately it's not allowing us, it's not enabling us to get what it is that we want in our lives. It's not enabling us to create what it is that we most desire to create for ourselves. So how do most people deal with this energy? How do most people deal with this inner saboteur energy that shows up when they're on the way to trying to create something for themselves? So I mentioned this a little bit before, but I'm going to go into it in more depth right now. So what people will do when this inner saboteur shows up, when they hear that voice, you can't do it, you're never going to get there, nobody in your family has ever had this kind of relationship before, whatever it is, however that voice shows up for you, most people at this stage will do a number of things, right? One of a number of things. Number one, either they try and push through this energy, right? They say, they hear this voice coming up and they say, right, like, talk to the hand, I'm not listening. They try and push through, they try and take action anyway, they try and do the thing anyway. And this works to a certain extent, especially if it's something that requires a lot of action, a lot of effort, a lot of just showing up and doing it and pushing through, like building a business or getting getting your body in shape or whatever. Like, sometimes this can be useful. However, that voice is usually, when we push through it, that voice is usually not going to go away. In fact, often it gets stronger and louder. The more we push it away, or we push through that voice and we try and go for our dreams anyway, the more it's going to show up in a louder, stronger way. And ultimately, many of us get defeated. And that's why many of us give up on our goals. Like, January, let's say, by the end of the first month of the new year, most people have already given up completely on their desires. Most people have almost always given up on what it is that they're trying to create in their lives after about 30 days, because this voice is so strong. And even no amount of action and pushing through and motivation and just rah, 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 like trying to get yourself psyched up and push through, it's not going to actually dissolve this block. And ultimately, especially if this is something that has been really with you since childhood, it's not going to just go away on its own. Okay, so pushing through is not, sometimes it can be a good temporary strategy, but ultimately it's not the best way to work through this energy and ultimately dissolve it so we can move towards what it is that we desire to create for ourselves. So the second thing that people do, the second tactic or strategy that people most often employ to get rid of the, or, you know, work, or I wouldn't even say work with it. They just try and, like, in this case, they just pretend it's not there, right? They just pretend it's not there. They're just like, I'm just going about my day and I am, you know, I am trying to manifest what I want. I am trying to go out on some dates. I'm trying to meet my king. I am doing all the things, I'm doing the right action, and there's this really intense part of me who does not feel safe actually moving forward with my goals. And so what a lot of women will do is they will just pretend that voice isn't even there. It's like they will stick their head completely in the sand and just say, oh, everything's great, I'm moving towards what I want. Oh my God, he's just around the corner, la 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 la, right? But what happens here is there's a denial of what is actually taking place at the level of the psyche, okay? At the deep level of the subconscious mind. And no matter how much we push this stuff down and pretend it's not there or ignore it and just act like everything is hunky-dory and everything is in perfect order towards us getting what we want, the more that voice is actually going to come up in a louder, stronger, and more intense way. And you see this in a lot of spiritual communities. There's a lot of spiritual bypassing going on. And, you know, this is, I want to almost have another Facebook Live on this at another point, because there is so much of this going on where it's just like, I'm just going to sit on my sofa and watch Oprah and eat bonbons all day and never take any real action because my king is coming and he's going to show up at my doorstep and I don't have to do anything. And, you know, this is great to a certain extent. If you're actually feeling that way, if you're actually genuinely feeling blissful and optimistic and like in the zone and full of excitement and joy and anticipation about your king coming, that's one thing. But here's where it goes wrong. Most women actually use their words to cover up how they're really feeling. And this is something I see with a lot of women. It's like, oh yeah, he's coming. Oh my God, he's just around the corner, right? You know, I just have to like meditate some more. I just need to pray some more. And I'm saying with this a lot of love, right? Like I have totally been guilty of this in the past. And I'm saying with a lot of just like irreverence right now too, because it's like we use these words, we tell ourselves these things, even when there are these deeper patterns within us, even when the saboteur energy is ultimately the one who's running the show. There's no amount of sugarcoating that can cover up what is actually taking place at the deepest level of the psyche. That is ultimately the thing that is creating our reality or recreating our reality, okay? So either people push through it, they pretend it's not there, or here's what a lot of people do as well, they get angry at it. And this is kind of the initial response that most people have when they find out that they have this pattern, this archetypal pattern of the inner saboteur that's been running the show, that has been, you know, calling the shots in their love lives. It's this part of them that keeps showing up and cutting them off from getting what it is that they really want. They get really angry at this part of themselves and they shame or they blame or they condemn this part of themselves and they say, oh my God, why would I do this to myself? What the hell is wrong with me? Why can't I figure this out? I've been at this for so long. What is wrong with me? Why is this voice? Why am I trying to prevent myself from getting what I want? Especially when you start to hear things like you create your own reality, right? And all that, though that is true, that statement can be used as a club to beat ourselves over the head if we are not in alignment with what we want, and there is this deeper archetypal pattern of the inner saboteur that's ultimately preventing us from creating what we want. So most people will either, like I said, they'll push through it, they will pretend it's not there, they will get angry at it, or they will try and just clear it out, like endless clearing techniques, like trying to get rid of this energy, trying to banish it from their system. All of these things, all of these strategies, all of these tactics that people do, let's just face it, they're not effective, period. And even if they have like a modicum of effectiveness to them, really what it comes down to, it ultimately, they are a band-aid. They are not going to actually solve or resolve the patterning at the deepest level that has been trying to keep us safe. And it has been trying to protect us. And it has not been allowing us to get what we want because it's out of our comfort zone, and because that part of us believes that it would be unsafe, or it would just be too much, or we couldn't handle it, or it would be too scary for us to actually have what we desire in our lives. Okay, so I know this is looking pretty grim right now, and this is probably, I know so many of you have experienced this, because this is something I see again and again and again in my clients, and that's why I really wanted to bring this Facebook Live, bring this subject to this Facebook Live, because it's something that is so insidious. And if we don't actually know how to work with this pattern, versus just trying to get rid of it, or pretend it's not there, or push through it, ultimately we will stay in the exact same place that we have been in for years. And I'm not trying to scare you or make you feel bad in any way, and yet it's an important thing to come to that kind of realization with ourselves, within ourselves, to get real with ourselves. And if we have this pattern going on, and it's been running the show, and it's been blocking us from actually getting into the kind of relationship that we want to be in, I'm saying this again with so much love, because I care about the women in this group and the women who want to ultimately break through and create that sacred partnership they so desire. This pattern does not go away on its own, ladies. There's no amount of spiritual bypassing. There's no amount of ignoring and pretending it's not there. There is no amount of just pushing through and using sheer willpower alone to get rid of this pattern. I have tried it, right? I have tried this. Trust me, I have used myself as my own guinea pig over and over and over again, and it just doesn't work. There's no amount of that actually works. So what does work, right? So what does work? How can we actually work with this energy in a way that begins to release it from our systems, that begins to dissolve it, and ultimately not only just releases it or dissolves it, but ultimately catalyzes it into power? How can we take this energy and transmute it into a superpower that is not only just like kind of, you know, it's something, that block doesn't show up for me anymore, that's great, but how do we actually transmute it into a superpower, into an ally that will support us along the journey of creating what it is that we want to create in our love lives, okay? So we're going to talk about that now. So the first thing to understand, and this is the first thing that most people miss. Most people mess this up because, just let's face it, ladies, as a culture, on the whole, we have been taught as women to beat ourselves up. And that the way to get where we want to go from where we are is to condemn and to chastise and to try and fix and to make ourselves wrong and to try and condemn and belittle and beat ourselves up ultimately into getting what we want. Again, another topic for another Facebook Live at some point, but the thing that's really important to realize, ladies, is that this is not ever, ever, ever going to help you transmute and transform your inner saboteur. This approach of beating ourselves up, of getting angry at ourselves, of blaming ourselves, of shaming ourselves, this is the exact problem that I see in the personal development world that is keeping women stuck. It is keeping them in these patterns. And ultimately, when we do that, we not only feel like shit, we actually push that energy deeper and deeper and deeper into the unconscious. It doesn't go away. It's just going to show up and it's going to rear its ugly head again and again and again. And we're just going to keep ourselves stuck in this spiral of shame, of beating ourselves up and not getting what we want, and beating ourselves up and not getting what we want. So the first step in transmuting the inner saboteur is to, first of all, have compassion for it. And this is something that's so challenging for so many women. It is something that is so difficult to like actually look at these parts of ourselves, like the inner child, the inner saboteur, the inner victim, whatever it is, and to hold that part of ourselves from a space of deep, deep, deep loving compassion. Right? Understanding the role that it has been playing, understanding that it has been trying to help you, understanding that it has ultimately had a really good intention. That is the first step, ladies. You cannot condemn this part of you. You cannot beat it down. You cannot try and push it away. It's just going to get louder. This first step in transmuting it is to have compassion for it. And I'm not just saying compassion in the sense of like, okay, I accept that, like intellectual compassion, like actually bringing it into your heart and saying, I love you. Thank you for what you've been trying to do for me. Thank you for trying to protect me. Thank you. I appreciate you for the role that you have been playing in my life. That is step one, ladies. You cannot bypass step one. And this is the thing that's so hard for so many women. And yet this is the key. Self-compassion, and especially compassion for this part of ourselves. Especially compassion for the part of ourselves that actually, in some ways, it's the most difficult for us to have compassion for, the most difficult for us to actually love, and yet this is what it takes. How do I know this? Because this is what it took for me. This is what it takes for my clients. This is what it will take for you, is to not just see this part of yourself and become aware of it, become conscious of it, to actually have genuine, heartfelt compassion for it. Okay. That's the first step. The second step is to understand, to ask this part of you what role it's been playing in your life and what does it need? What does it need from you? What is the fundamental underlying need that is not being fulfilled here? Is it, so in other words, if this inner saboteur is trying to protect you from heartbreak because it does not want you to put you through the devastating loss of having your heart broken again, to having your heart ripped out of your chest and stomped on by another person. What is that part of you actually asking for? That part of you is actually asking for love. That part of you is actually asking for safety. That part of you is asking for you to let it know that it's going to be okay, that everything is going to be okay, and that you've got her, him, it, them, whatever. Okay? Understanding that it has a role, understanding that it's trying to fulfill a need. This part also allows you to have more compassion for it, because when you really understand that it has been playing a role, it's like, okay, I see what you're doing here. I can actually have compassion for you now. Understand what is the underlying need behind this. Does it want love? Does it want to be held? Does it need to be seen? Does it need to feel desired? Does it need to feel celebrated? Does it need to feel safe? Does it need to feel like it belongs? What is the underlying need that's not being met here? And how can you, as you reparent this part of yourself, as you heal and integrate this inner saboteur, how can you become the parent to this part of yourself How can you actually reparent this part of yourself in a way where that deeper need is beginning to be met? Because as long as that deeper need is not being met, it is going to lash out and it is going to come in and try to blow shit up, to sabotage that relationship, to keep you from moving forward in your love life, to keep you from meeting men. Okay. This is so, so important to understand, ladies. I'm giving you like gold, by the way. This is like such deep stuff that I'm sharing with you. So the last step, this is actually not the last step. This is the last step I'm going to share with you on this live, because this is too much to cover in the scope of one live. This is why I don't even like often going in such depth on these lives, because I don't want you to think that like, oh, I'm just going to try this on my own, right? Oh, I can try this at home. You might get some results, but again, I don't want to put a band-aid on a bleeding heart. If you have been in this place for a while, this is ultimately to help you get a sense of how this works, but this is not something that necessarily this is not going to, especially if you've been here for like 20 years, 10 years, 5 years, this is not something that's going to fix itself on its own again. So this is not meant for you to like run with, or like, oh, she's giving me a band-aid, okay, I can feel better right now without actually having to do anything differently. This is not about that. This is about showing you how this works and actually understanding, giving you a sense of how this works and how you can actually transmute this inner saboteur. You don't have to live with this for the rest of your life. So the third way to transmute this inner saboteur is you want to give it a new role, okay? You want to give it a new role. You want to give it something else to do. So likely it has been trying to keep you safe. It has been blowing shit up. It has been, it's been you've been getting involved with men who you're really compatible with, like, you have this deep, intense, passionate soulmate, chemistry-filled relationship with somebody, and then let's say after a few weeks or a couple months, this energy starts to come in big time and boom, blows the whole thing up. Okay, so what do you do? What's the third thing that you can do to transmute this inner saboteur energy? You want to give it a new role. You want to give it something else to do. So what might this look like, ladies? What might this look like? Let's say that you have this part of you who does these things, right? Oh, there's my inner saboteur again, trying to protect me from actually having what I want, or trying to prevent me from getting out of my comfort zone and risk the pain of having my heart broken again. Okay, so I hold this part of me with compassion. I see what the underlying need is here, and I give it a new role. So what might the new role be in this case? Well, once you do the first two steps, it's a lot easier to get to the third step. It's a lot easier to give this part of you a new role because you understand what it's trying to accomplish, the purpose of it. So, for example, a really good new role for the inner saboteur could be the protector, the boundary setter, right? So if ultimately this part of you is trying to keep you safe, it's not going about it in a way that's getting you what you want or even really creating real safety for you. And yet, ultimately, we all need a boundary setter. We all need that aspect of us that has our back, that truly will protect us in situations when we are in danger. That instinctive part of us who knows to run away when something is not ultimately going to be in our best interests. It is ultimately not going to be in alignment with our true intention or desire. So let's say we give this inner saboteur this new role, this new identity of the protector or the boundary setter, right? What might this look like? Well, if you're getting involved with a man and he seems really great, he has all of these things, like he looks great on paper, you have all this amazing connection and you guys have this amazing sex and it's like fireworks and love at first sight and all of these things. And you have this little voice in the back of your head that says, something is not right here. something is not right. Something is not quite lining up here. And most of us either push that to the back of our minds, pretend it's not there, that deeper instinctual knowing that this part of us ultimately is doing a good job in this case of protecting us. Because if you were to get involved with that guy, and this is why a lot of women get married and they stay with men who are ultimately not good matches to them for a really, really long time, because they do not trust that deeper knowing within them that knows that this is not the person for them, right? So a really good new role for the inner saboteur could be the boundary setter, could be the protector, could be, to call on this part of you when you are in genuine danger, or when you are with somebody who is not aligned with what you want, or who ends up being a total narcissist and he steals your money, or he ends up breaking your heart, or whatever it is. So learning to, once you transmute this energy and you go through this whole process and you give this part of you a new role, a new identity, it can actually be your best ally. But you have to understand the difference, and you can't get to that place unless you have gone through this other journey of actually integrating this part of you by bringing it into your heart, by showing it genuine compassion, by fulfilling the deeper need that it's trying to fulfill in your life. Ultimately, you can't get to step 3 if you haven't yet gone through step 1 and 2. Okay, ladies? Is this making sense? I would love to hear from you, ladies. Awesome, this is gold indeed. Yeah, I would love to hear from you, ladies. If this is making sense, if you're resonating with this, just go ahead and share in the comment section. Like, if this is something that resonates with you, I would love, love, love to hear that, okay? So now that I've given you the kind of foundational tools to begin to transmute and catalyze this inner saboteur energy into a superpower, again, like I said, this is not about giving you ladies a band-aid. And again, this is not meant to be like, okay, I'm just gonna figure this out on my own, and like I'm just gonna like take a little bit of what Claudia's saying and a little bit of what this person's saying and all of this, right? It's like the Franken relationship, right? I've heard people use the word the Franken business, like you just kind of cobble together all these different strategies and tools and techniques, and ultimately you're just kind of putting together this like Frankenstein of a business. There's no real system, there's no real method, there's no real structure, or there's no real even flow to it, okay? This is a piece of the work that I do with my clients. This is just a piece. This is just a part of what it will take for you to really break through this pattern that has kept you from creating what you most desire in your life. So especially ladies, if this is something that you've noticed about yourself, let's say you are too afraid to even start taking action, or you're just kind of kidding yourself and you're just saying, I just need to do more healing work. I just need to do more inner work. I just need to read this book, or I just need to go to a few more seminars, or do a few more plant medicine ceremonies, or whatever it is. Like, let me just call that out right now. That is the #1 way that I see women hiding, is that they will refuse to actually take action or move forward. And again, that is the inner saboteur trying to keep you safe, trying to keep you hidden so you don't actually get hurt, so you don't actually go after your dreams where there is a risk of rejection, right? Or if you find yourself in the situation where it's like, oh my God, I get to that place where it's like, we are 3 months in a relationship, I met this amazing guy, and everything has just clicked, and it's like the best thing ever, and we're gonna be together forever. And then one day it just all falls apart, and you're like, what the hell just happened? Or you start acting a certain way, and you notice this inner saboteur coming in. It's because this energy, because this archetypal energy, this patterning within you has not been healed. It's not been resolved. It's not been transmuted into the superpower. So ladies, this is not something that is going to get better on its own. Let me just like share with you, hands down, this is something, especially if you've been stuck for the past 5, 10, 20 years, this is not something that you can just kind of be like, okay, I'm just gonna like do this and hopefully it'll get better. This is something that like requires a deep intervention. As Johnny says, a divine intervention. So if this is something that you are committed to breaking free of, if you're committed to releasing and integrating and healing and ultimately transmuting this deeper energy within you, these sabotorial patterns, these sabotaging things that you do, then please, we invite you to reach out and book a free 45-minute breakthrough call with either me or Johnny. And what takes place on this call is we will go all the way into your love life. We will look at everything that's been happening to you. Everything, like we'll look at your past, we'll look at your present, we'll look at kind of what you want, where you ultimately want to go, what your desires are. And if it's something that we feel we can help you with, we may give you an invitation to do some deeper work with us. And if not, if it's something that we feel like we can't help you with, if it's something that we don't understand or we don't know how to help, like to serve you in, then we will point you in the direction of something or someone else or a better resource that is a better match. In either case, again, the link to book that call is claudialucida.com/apply. And it will take you to a calendar page where you can just fill out, pick a time and date that work for you, fill out a brief application, and it will just ask you some questions about your history, about your love life, where you've been and where you want to go. And then we will be back to you as soon as we can on that, okay? So again, ladies, it's such a deep privilege and such a deep honor to share this content with you, to share these lives with you. And again, I am sending you so much love and so much compassion to you on your journey of finding your king, and really want to let you know that we are here for you along this journey. And please let us know if there's any way we can be of service to you in this group. All right, ladies, thank you so much for tuning in. Ciao.